Happy Friday, everybody. Welcome to Sports Tonight. I'm sports producer Scott Pennyman here with sports director Bailey Burmaster. Bailey, how you feeling on this Friday?
You know, it's Friday. I can't complain when it is Friday, and we've had a good sports week, and football's back, and there's some good storylines to talk about.
For sure, for sure. Hey, I'm just earlier today out at Falcons training camp. Obviously here they're getting still no pads on yet, but they're getting some really good work in the heat. I guess good for him that there's no pads yet because it's been really hot out there the last few days.
Yeah, what have you seen out there from practice on day 3? I know yesterday, or maybe it was today, and I'm getting my days mixed up because now we're getting into the dog days of summer.
Right?
But Bijan Robinson has looked like an absolute beast. I mean, I think he's, so far, I know it's day 3, but he's lived up to the hype that everyone has kind of put on him since being drafted to Atlanta.
For sure, I think a lot of the stir was they were doing sort of individual drills, pass catching drills. Bijan was kind of out there as a wide receiver. He's been at wide receiver a lot here. When you look at these 11-on-11 drills, and he had one where he had a really nice one-handed catch in the corner of the end zone. So if that got all the fans there, you got fans in there at Flowery Branch now watching practices. They went crazy, of course. The number one draft pick for the Falcons. So, of course, they're going to go crazy. And, look, I mean, my takeaway from today right now is from an offensive standpoint, Bijan, they're going to line him up in a lot of different places.
Yep.
They're going to beat people over the head with Bijan Robinson, right? He's going to be a weapon. Probably a lot like, well, I think they hope maybe he ends up being a little better. But remember how they use Reggie Bush in New Orleans? I think when you think about how they use Reggie Bush in New Orleans, kind of think that about Bijan Robinson. I think he's going to be a very similar player for the Falcons. And then I think on the defensive side of things today, it was just a lot of the coaches. Ryan Nielsen talked today, including Arthur
What was your
Smith.
vibe of him, kind of being the new defensive coordinator and
Yeah.
hopefully getting this group to mesh like they need to improve that defense, which was in the bottom half of the league last year?
Yeah, look, I mean, he seems like a very stern guy. He seems very focused, kind of like a real sort of settling sort of style of running things. And the guys seem like they have a pretty good feel for him. It seems like their response has been mostly positive. And he talked a lot today about the secondary, right? They've made a lot of moves in the secondary. Look, they've got 3 guys in the secondary that were former first-round picks. A.J. Terrell, they traded for Jeff Okudah from Detroit. And they brought in Mike Hughes, who's also a former first-round pick. So there's a lot of talent and ability in that secondary. And you put that with guys like Jesse Bates, who they signed, big free agent signing. So, yeah, there's going to be some decisions to make. I think that's going to be the interesting part because there's probably going to be a couple really good football players in that secondary that might not make the football team.
Well, and something I think that might get understated from a coaching standpoint is they brought in Jerry Gray, and Jerry Gray used to be with the Packers and then I believe the Vikings, and everyone in the secondary, specifically corners who have worked with him, have spoken so highly about the type of coach he is and just the brains he has for the game and the position and how they've elevated. And I think you could see that in players like Jair Alexander. And I'm really curious to see maybe what these players would speak on specifically about Jerry Gray, but also how he improves their game just in general.
Yeah, no, A.J. Terrell, he talked towards the end of practice, and he talked a lot about Jerry Gray's influence, along with Coach Steve Jackson, too. Those guys actually played together with the Houston Oilers back in the day. He talked a lot about those guys and how they've really helped his game. And A.J. said he wants to take his game to a next level this year as far as getting turnovers and interceptions. I think he only has 4 interceptions right now in his first 3 seasons in the NFL. This is his 4th season. So he talked a lot about wanting to get more turnovers. He's talked about how the coaches have been kind of on him a lot about going after the ball more, attacking the ball, creating more game-changing plays, forcing more turnovers. So I think if you're going to see any difference this season, I think that's going to be the main difference. I think you're going to see a lot of those guys attacking, going after turnovers, trying to make game-changing sort of plays, get the ball back to that offense, get more points up on the board.
Before we move on, briefly talk about Taylor Heineke. He's the hometown kid, went to Collins Hill High School, has really been all over around the NFL, out of the NFL for a bit, then ended up back in Washington, and now he's here with the hometown team. Did he say anything interesting today?
Yeah, he just talks about, look, I mean, he said that he was really close to re-signing with Washington this past offseason, right? He was a free agent.
I think he was really close with Ron Rivera. No,
Yeah,
like they
yeah.
had a good relationship.
Yeah. He seemed to enjoy his time in Washington. He said he was really close to re-signing there, but then, obviously things worked out. He ended up coming to the Falcons. I believe it was 2 years, $14 million. So, look, he talked about this is like the best possible situation for him, right? I mean, he's a very smart quarterback. This is his sixth NFL team, right? So he's bounced around a little bit, but now he gets to come home. He played his high school ball at Collins Hill, which is about 30 minutes away from the Falcons facility out in Flowery Branch. So, look, this seems like a perfect fit. He's the perfect guy to have around Desmond Ridder, just with all his experience. And he talked about that. He talked about, look, I'm going to do whatever it is to try to help the youngster out, right? Because I think I believe Heineke, at this point of his career, sort of knows what he is, right? I think when you've bounced around the league, played for about 5 or 6 different teams, and that's perfect, right? I mean,
he's a backup guy, but he's
Right.
a guy you can play if you need to. It reminds me a little bit of
Exactly.
Jacoby Brissett. Maybe not that high of a caliber of backup because Jacoby has proven that he can go to Cleveland and
Yeah.
start and win games and do what he needs to. I mean, he's not going to be spectacular, but he can get the job done. And that's why Washington picked him up, and Heineke could have played behind him. But I also would be interested to know if Heineke saw an opportunity to prove himself if something were to happen with Desmond Ridder. Now, I never want injuries. You never want to pray for someone's downfall. I'm not that type. But the reality is we don't know what we have in Desmond Ridder.
good
There's
point.
2 things that could open the door for Heineke. Injury. You don't know if Ritter's injury prone in the NFL yet, if he's going to get hit. He's not really a bigger guy. So that's something to take into account. And number 2, what if he just doesn't get the job done? I don't think this team would be afraid to switch to Heineke if it was getting kind of ugly. Now, that's obviously a bold statement because we haven't even gone to week 1. But you have to sit there and kind of think that was a thought process for Heineke in all of this because he's probably not going to play over Jacoby Brissett in Washington. So why not come home on a 2-year deal and see what happens?
I don't disagree with that. I think he saw it maybe not just as an opportunity to come home, but also an advantageous situation where, look, Ridder's not a proven quarterback, like you just said. He's a second-year quarterback who, look, they could be on the fence about. Let's just be real, right? I mean, I don't think anything you saw in those games he played last year would lead you to believe that, okay, he's the guy for sure. So, yeah, I think Heineke probably does look at this situation and go, if that guy struggles early in the season, that could be an opportunity for me. And look, we've seen Heineke play before, right? He started a playoff game in Washington against Tampa.
Against Tampa
Yeah.
and went toe to toe with Tom Brady. Like that is what he's known for. And keep in mind, he was brought in during COVID. He was the backup COVID QB. He had been with the team, I think, like a week, if that, and came out and balled out. And I think he earned a lot of respect from people in the league. So I wouldn't be surprised if he got an opportunity if we saw that type of Taylor on the field. A team, though, that is not going to have a quarterback issue, most likely, the New York Jets and Aaron Rodgers, but they keep adding pieces to their offense. They already have Garrett Wilson. They brought in Alan Lazard. They have CJ Uzama at tight end. He went to North Gwinnett here in Atlanta, for anyone who doesn't know. They have some real pieces, and now there's rumors that it might be Dalvin Cook to join them now.
Yeah, I think this is something we kind of saw coming, right? I think when Aaron Rodgers took the pay cut a few days ago, people were sort of like, wow, Aaron Rodgers.
You got to believe that was a little dig at the Packers, too. They're sitting here going, oh, you'll take a pay cut for the Jets because you want to win a Super Bowl, but you wouldn't hear.
Right.
Because remember, there was that whole thing that would he take a pay cut to keep Devontae Adams there? And Devontae Adams ended up going to the Raiders because the Packers wouldn't give him the money he wanted. And how I'm just saying. It's all very interesting.
Well, let's be real. He was butthurt when they drafted Jordan Love.
For
right?
sure.
So
he found it disrespectful.
Yeah.
He had done a lot for the Packers and Green Bay at that point. But the reality is he's not getting any younger.
Exactly.
And it was the Brett Favre instance all over again, and he was in those shoes. I do think he treated Jordan Love better than Brett Favre maybe treated him when he was drafted.
Yeah.
But still, where the Jets are concerned, how much do you think Cook would be a get for them?
Oh, I think that's a big get. I mean, because when you look at Dalvin Cook so far, it just kind of surprised me when he got released by Minnesota because, look, I know how everybody treats the running back position. They treat it like it's an afterthought. But Dalvin Cook is still a very productive player. There was no real serious drop-off in his production in his time in Minnesota. Maybe a slight drop-off, but nothing serious. I think he still has 2 or 3 really good prime running seasons left. So if you add that to what the Jets have right now on offense, they have Breece Hall, who ran the ball really good for them last year before he got hurt. So you add him to a backfield with Dalvin Cook, that can not only extend Dalvin's career because they got a couple guys that can run the football there, that can really be the last piece that Jets team needs to seriously compete for something.
But isn't it crazy that a superstar player like Aaron Rodgers brings so much weight to a team, whether he's advocating for people or people just want to play with you? I think that shows you that quarterback really is the most important position, which also is a great little transition into big news from yesterday. The AFC North, the Bengals, Joe Burrow was an 11 on 11 and just pulled up and then went down and was carted off, and everyone was speculating what had happened. Zach Taylor said it was a calf injury. Doesn't seem like something that will be season ending, but he's definitely going to miss some time in training camp.
Good. It seems like they've been kind of like, of all the injuries yesterday, of course, Jalen Ramsey went down for the Dolphins. He's going to be out 6 to 8 weeks. You know, with the Bengals and Joe Burrow, that's kind of called a calf injury, right? So I guess they're kind of unsure exactly how long he'll miss. Look, I mean, Joe Burrow's the franchise, right? I mean, if no Joe Burrow,
and he's the next one to get a big contract. I mean, Justin
Exactly.
Herbert just signed, but I wonder. I mean, Joe Burrow is that dude. I think he is one of the
sure.
best quarterbacks. But
Probably the second
now
best
and throughout
quarterback.
camp, so let's see, he's torn his ACL. He had appendicitis last year in training camp and missed, 2-3 weeks of
Yep.
camp, had to have surgery. And now this?
he just doesn't like training camp. That's why he keeps
Hey,
getting hurt.
listen, I don't hate him for it. I probably wouldn't like it either. But, I mean, there's something to take in there. Hopefully it's not too serious, though, because the Bengals revolve around him.
For sure. I mean, without Joe Burrow, this is a 4-13, 5-12 sort of team. With Joe Burrow, they could win a Super Bowl. That's how important he is to what they are doing on offense. I mean, this guy basically took a franchise that was one of the butt of jokes in the NFL for a lot of years and made them a serious every year, probably for the next 10 years. Every year that he's out there, they're going to have an opportunity to win a Super Bowl. So, yeah, I don't care what you have to do. I mean, put that thing in wrap, let him sit and chill until week 1. I don't care what they do, but you have to protect the franchise. No matter what it takes, make sure Joe Burrow is right because nothing happens there unless he's right.
No, I totally agree. So hopefully it's not a serious injury. I also think he's just great for the AFC North. I mean, let's think about
Depends on who you root for.
No, but I think just from a football caliber, especially where quarterbacks are just concerned in that division, you have Deshaun Watson, you have Joe Burrow, you have Lamar Jackson, Kenny Pickett, but
Right, exactly.
there's different calibers, but.
Hey, you know what? Forget the Steelers. Look, man, they had Ben Roethlisberger, who's probably going to the Hall of
years.
Fame for so many years.
Yeah.
They deserve to have a crappy quarterback well, I'm not calling Kenny Pickett crappy. Maybe he
I
won't
think
be
we
crappy.
still
I
will
don't
give
know.
him time to see. I'll be interested to see how he develops this season. That's what I'll say. I don't think he's the caliber that Lamar and Joe and Deshaun are, but who's to say he can't be in the caliber of maybe like a Dak Prescott? I think that could be a ceiling for him to see how he progresses. I'm not saying he's going to be like a Dak Prescott. I'm saying I think that's what his ceiling would be.
I can see that. Look, I mean, I think they would take that over his performance
I think
last
so.
year, where last year, you're sort of wondering if he could be that franchise guy. I think more than that, with them, you trust the Steelers organization because they normally do things the right way. So I think
Mike Tomlin runs a tight ship,
Yeah, for
and players really respond to him. So I think that is a major reason why Kenny Pickett would grow more than people would actually give him credit for.
And he's from the area, so I mean,
he's loved.
Yeah, he
He's
wants to be
loved.
there. He's loved. So I think, look, that's a hard division. I mean, when you start talking about teams that can win that division, the team you think could win that division might finish fourth in that division. I mean, that's just how hard it is. It's going to be. Those are going to be some tough Sundays, man.
Well, and speaking of divisions, college football is getting totally shaken up. And it starts with OU and Texas leaving the Big 12. That is what has triggered all of this.
Yeah.
After OU and Texas left, the Big 12 was not happy about it because it was kind of a sneaky little move under the table. No one had any idea, so that was the issue. And it kind of left the Big 12 high and dry. So what did they do? They went and added teams like Houston and BYU and to make this a bigger conference, and they haven't stopped. Colorado used to be part of the Big 12, or was it technically like the Big 8 back then, whatever.
I mean, Big 12, yeah.
And now Colorado's coming back, which I think is a huge get. I understand Colorado hasn't been dominant in any shape or form for the Pac-12, but they have Deion Sanders as their head coach now. I don't know if you've had to see his speeches. I mean,
Oh, for sure.
they get you
For
ramped
sure.
up.
I love Coach Prime.
So I think Colorado's a big get for the Big 12, but the Big 12 came out and said that their perfect number is 14, and they sit at 13 right now, and they want one other team. The rumors at the moment are that Oregon will be the final team to join the Big 12. You have to, I mean, I'm biased. I went to Oklahoma State, so I am a fan of the Big 12. But I think getting Colorado and Oregon on top of the teams you added, this is a fun conference.
Yeah, man. You know, I'm just thinking about it. You're talking about conferences. I don't know where anybody plays anymore, right? It seems like every year somebody's joining a different conference, and all these conferences are out to get different teams. Look, I mean, at the end of the day, I'm pretty sure Deion Sanders being on that team is a big reason why they became all of a sudden attractive to them, right? So, yeah, I mean, with them headed back to the Big 12, and it's kind of funny. You know, as much as I watch college football, when I thought about Colorado, I always just looked at them like they were in the Big 12. I kind of forgot they even went to
Right?
the Pac-12, you know. So, yeah, I mean,
That's Texas A&M for me, which is funny because
Yeah.
I know they're in the SEC now, but I just remember them being in the Big 12 when I was
12.
in school. So.
right. You know, so, I mean, look, I mean, Colorado, to me, I just look at this as Colorado is probably going back to where they belong. So, you know, look,
And
I
the
think
Pac-12 is disintegrating.
Yeah.
They losing Oregon and Colorado.
Well, look,
I mean, what, you have USC and
Yeah.
that's it now?
I-
UCLA is a brand, but they're not really as good as they ever used to be.
I guess all their hopes are going into USC, right? Lincoln Riley out there. I mean, they're probably going to run that conference with Lincoln Riley being out there. right? I mean,
Easy, but then that affects the college football playoff because you can sit here and say USC doesn't play anybody. It's the weakest conference now.
they do have that Notre Dame game every year, right?
Believe so.
Yeah, so I mean, I guess they can, if they win that game, I guess that'll be their one big win every year if they
If
get that
Notre
win.
Dame's relevant,
Yeah,
can't just assume.
that's true. I mean, they did have a drop off after BK left last year. So I mean, yeah, I mean, so look, I mean, who knows though? Right now, I mean, Pac-12 is what it is, and they may get a powerhouse to join them again next
It
year.
will be
with the way
interesting
things go.
to see how it all plays out.
Yeah, so we'll see. I mean, I guess that's one of those big to be continued, right? All right, so Bailey is going to the weekend. What's on your mind?
So we talk a little bit about the Atlanta Open and Chris Eubanks here.
Yeah.
He's headed to the quarterfinals, and he was asked how weird it is to be the main attraction at the Atlanta Open. I think he's 32nd in the tennis world right now.
Yeah, he's up there.
He's up there, and he just said it's so surreal. It is so surreal because he used to go to that tournament and be like, if anyone needs a practice buddy, I'm here. And he would be on call for guys who needed to practice. And now he's literally the main attraction, the guy. And so the attention is just something new for him. And he's not trying to change what he does, but he notices it now that people are lining up trying to get his autograph and stuff. So I thought that was just a really interesting full circle moment for him to be back home and be the main attraction.
What a whirlwind, right? I mean, I think most people probably didn't even know his name like a month ago, right? I mean, and then he makes the run at Wimbledon, and now he's the showcase player for an event in his hometown. So,
Yep.
yeah, I mean, it's got to be a great whirlwind for him. And look, I mean, he looks like me and you were over there last week, right? I mean, he was one of the guys that was on the court practicing after everyone had left. I mean,
Yep.
so he has a lot of focus. The young man seems like.
Did.
Yeah, the young man has a lot of focus, so he deserves all that is coming his way, in my opinion, right?
All right, what's on your mind, Scott?
What's on my mind?
So we head into the weekend.
Heading to the weekend. So I just saw right here, it looks like, I think it's kind of cool here just how global the NBA game has sort of become. The NBA really gets it as far as growing the game, right, with the Hawks and Magic, they'll play that regular season game in Mexico City
cool.
coming up this season on November 9th. And I just think that of all the sports leagues around, I mean, the NFL, they're obviously the powerhouse, but the NBA and Adam Silver and those guys get it. I mean, I don't think anyone has been able to grow the game globally as far as the major sports leagues in our country the way the NBA has, and they just seem to get it right, you know. I mean, so I think makes me wonder if in a couple years if we'll start to see teams all over the world. We'll see, right?
Yeah, it'd be cool to see more games kind of all over, but it's a good start to have that Hawks Magic game in Mexico City.
For sure, right? All right, so are you ready to let the folks get out of here?
Let's let the folks go.
Hey, everybody, enjoy your weekend here.